All right, let's talk about something tiny that causes huge headaches, the apostrophe. We're going to crack its code right here, right now. Let's dive in. I guarantee you've seen this. You're walking down the street, you look at a sign at the local market, and bam, there it is. It's probably one of the most common mistakes out there in the wild, and today we're going to figure out why. I mean, it's just this little floating comma, right? A single key on your keyboard. But man, it seems to have a mind of its own. So what is it? What makes this tiny mark so tricky? Why does it show up in places it has no business being, and then, poof, it's gone when you actually need it? Okay, but here's the good news, and it's really good news. For all the chaos it seems to cause, the apostrophe really only has two main jobs. That's it, just two. If we can nail those two jobs and, learn how to avoid a couple of super common traps, you'll be an apostrophe master. I promise. All right, let's get into it. Job number one, making contractions. This is probably the one you see all the time, the one you're most comfortable with. Honestly, just think of it as a shortcut for your writing.
So, what is a contraction really? It's just squishing two words together to make a shorter one. And the apostrophe? Its only job here is to be a little placeholder to show you, hey, some letters used to be here. Okay, let's take a super simple example. The word didn't. We all know that's short for did not. See what's happening? The apostrophe just pops right in where the O from not used to be. That's it, super straightforward. But, English is weird, right? So some of them are a little funky. Take won't. That's the contraction for will not. Wait a second. Where did the W and O come from? The letters totally change. It's an odd one for sure. But the apostrophe's job is the same. It's marking the spot where a mashup of letters got taken out. It just shows you how this little guy has to be pretty flexible.
Okay, let's do a quick fire round of common ones you see every day. It is becomes it's. We are, we're. Cannot becomes can't. Do not becomes don't. Would have becomes would've. And who is becomes whose. See that pattern? Every single time that apostrophe is just filling in a gap where we took out some letters. Okay, ready for job number two? This is where people start to get a little shaky. But stick with me, it's not as bad as it seems. The apostrophe's second big job is all about showing ownership, or, possession. Think of it like this. The apostrophe is like a little arrow. It's pointing from a thing to its owner. It's telling you that whatever comes next belongs to the person or thing that came right before it. It's all about connecting an owner to their stuff. So, how do we do it? There are really just three core rules you need to know. Rule one, if you have one single thing, like the boy, you add an apostrophe and an S. So, the boy's pen. Easy enough. Rule two, what if you have a plural noun that already ends in S, like the girls? You just stick an apostrophe on the end. That's it. The girls' bags. And rule three, for those weird plural nouns that don't end in S, think children or people, you treat them like a singular. You add an apostrophe and an S. The children's books. Okay, I know what you're thinking. What about names like James or Chris? This is where everyone gets tangled up. The rule is, even for a singular noun ending in S, you still add another apostrophe S. So it's James's hat. It looks kind of weird, and it can feel weird to say, but that's the official rule. Same for a word ending in SS, like witness. You'd say, the witness's statement. All right, we've got the two jobs down, contractions and possession. Now for the fun part. Let's talk about the common traps, the apostrophe pitfalls that catch everyone. I mean, everyone. But after this, you're not going to fall for them. And here it is, trap number one, the heavyweight champion of grammatical errors. It's versus its. Okay, here's the only trick you will ever need. It's with an apostrophe always means it is or it has, always. If you can't expand it to it is in your sentence, then you can't use the apostrophe. It's without an apostrophe is the possessive one, like the dog wagged its tail. The tail belongs to it. This is like the one big weird exception to the possession rule. You just kind of have to burn this one into your brain. Which brings us all the way back to the beginning, back to that sign. Cauliflowers are half price. Now that we know the two jobs of an apostrophe, contraction and possession, can we figure out what on earth is going on here? This, my friends, is trap number two. It's so common, it even has a nickname, the greengrocer's apostrophe, because you see it on market signs all the time. The mistake is just throwing an apostrophe in there to make something plural. But let's think about it. Is the sign trying to say cauliflowers are half price? No, that makes no sense. Does the price belong to a single cauliflower? Nope. So it's not a contraction and it's not showing possession. It's a rogue apostrophe.
And there it is, the satisfying solution. The sign is just talking about more than one cauliflower. It's a plural. That's it. And you don't need an apostrophe for that. It should just say, cauliflowers are half price.
Okay, let's put it all together into your official apostrophe toolkit. It's super simple. 2 jobs: making contractions, like it's for it is, and showing possession, like the dog's toy. And 2 traps to avoid: the it's versus its mix-up, and the big one, plurals almost never need an apostrophe. That's pretty much the whole game.
And just like that, the apostrophe is demystified. See, it's not so scary once you know its job. See what I did there? So I guess there's only one question left. Now that you're an apostrophe expert, where are you going to spot the first mistake out in the wild? Happy hunting!